Okay, so let's get started. My name is Yiming Chen, and I'm from Origin Lab Technical Support Team, and I'm going to host today's webinar. So today's topic is create graph and a customized graph. So basically, I will just go through some examples of making graphs in Origin, starting from simple XY plot to more complicated graphs. And in this process, I will also share with you some of the tips on customizing graph and organizing graph, things like that. So during the graph, if you have any questions, you can post it on the Q&A window. My colleague Isha will help to answer your question. And also just to mention that the project and the recording will be shared with you next week. You can just go to our website on the recorded webinar and page, then you should be able to find them. Okay, so let's get started. First of all, I will just mention a little bit about the structure of the graph. So you may already know that in Origin, we have this graph container, and we also call this window. So in this window, we see that on the top is the white area, that's the page level. So it's like a canvas where we put the layers of plots on top of it. So on each page on each graph, there can be multiple layers. So in this case, you see there are two layers of graphs, and for each layer there can be multiple plots. So here we have one scatter plot on the first layer, and I have two um, line plots on the second layer. Okay, so the graph in Origin has this kind of hierarchical structure. So if you go to the right side of the Origin interface, and you will see the structure more clearly. So on the top is the page and the two layers and the plots. Okay. So in Origin, every element in the graph, or we call objects, you can customize it very easily. Basically, you can select every elements like the tick labels, tick titles, axis, plot. You can select these elements. And most of the elements, if you simply double click on it, it will bring up the property dialogues for that element. So right now I'm bringing up the plot details dialog, where you will find a couple of tabs where you can customize each aspect of a plot. And the same thing for the axis. Double click on the axis, you see this axis property dialogs, where you can customize the axis property. Okay, so other than the property dialogues for each element, you may also see that if you select, if you click on the plot, you will see this mini toolbar, and you will see the mini toolbar for axis as well. So mini toolbar is the newly introduced in Origin. That it is just to group all those settings for the elements into an easier access for you. So you can use the mini toolbar to quickly customize the graph. I will show how to use the mini toolbar in a moment. Okay. So that's basically the structure of the graph and where you can access to the property of each elements of the graph and customize it. Let's start with a simple plot. Okay, so here I have this worksheet. It has two columns of data, and if you check the column header, it's designated to X column and a Y column. So I'm going to use these two columns to make a XY scatter plot. Other than the data, you will notice that in Origin, the worksheet also contains the metadata of each column. So in the metadata area, you can see that each column has a long name and the units and the comments area. Okay, so when I make a plot, you will see how these metadata will go into the plot, into the graph. Okay, so to make a plot in Origin is very simple. You just select the column. In this case, I select the Y column. Origin will automatically find the X column for the plot. Then I go to the plot menu and find the plot type. In Origin, we have more than 100 types of graphs, and they are grouped into categories on the left side. You basically select the category first. So basically, in this case, I choose basic 2D graph and find a scatter plot. Okay. So I just choose the plot type, and it will make the graph for you. So now I will just customize the graph a little bit. Okay. So let me first duplicate the graph. I will first customize the graph using the property dialog. Let's say I want to change the color of the symbols and the size of the symbols. I basically double click on the plot and bring up the plot details dialog. On the right side, I can say change the shape to circle, change the size of symbol to 3, and change the color to red. So to apply the change on the graph, I simply click apply. You will see the graph is getting updated. Okay. I would also want to change the color of the background. So I needed to go to the layer level of the plot details dialog. So I choose layer 1 and go to the background tab and change color to light gray. Okay. And I can also add some transparency. Okay. Click apply. Okay. Next, I'm going to customize the ticks axis and the tick labels and things like that. So I choose axis first, double click, and it brings up the axis property dialog. Let's say I would like the ticks to facing inward. I can go find the major ticks and select in, and also for the minor ticks, click apply. I can repeat that for the left axis. Basically, actually, I can select all the axis. Okay, then I show all the axis by check this box and click apply. Okay, and I can customize all axes all at once. So let's say in and minor ticks facing inward and click apply, and you will see all the ticks are facing inward now. And I can also add the grid lines to the graph. So I go to the grids tab. So the vertical and horizontal grid lines are selected, and I can add the major grid lines, minor grid lines, and click apply. Okay, and click OK. The legend inside, that's it. Next, I'm going to show you how to use the mini toolbar to make this customization. It's much easier. You want this. Select the plot, change color, change shape, change the symbol size. Everything is done in the mini toolbar. You don't have to open the dialog, right? So basically, I can add the right y-axis by clicking this show opposite axis button, and I can change the ticks to facing inward. I can add the grid lines, both major and the minor grid lines. And I can apply the settings to the x-axis by clicking the apply format to. So I want to apply the grid lines to the x-axis, okay? And I can apply the tick style, so the axis style to the x-axis. So again, I click the x-axis and add the opposite axis. Okay, and I can also select the layer. Make sure you see the yellow frame, which means the layer is selected. If the mini toolbar disappears, you can click the shift key to bring it back. Okay, so I fill the layer with some light gray color and add some transparency. Okay. So this is just 2 ways to customize your graph. Okay. So let's see, move on to the next. Okay, so here I have a worksheet. It contains multiple Y columns. So each column represents one spectrum. And I will show you 2 ways to visualize the data. Okay, so let me just select all the Y columns. And again, I go to the plot menu. This time I will choose line plot. So by default, Origin will group all these plots and set individual colors. Okay. If you double click on this graph, you bring up the plot details dialog. So sometimes you want to, so all these curves are overlapping with each other. Sometimes you want them to be stacked. So you can go to the layer level and go to the stack tab. And let's say I would check auto and click OK. So some of the curves are out beyond the layer. I can click the rescale button, rescale Y button to bring them back. Okay. So you see all the curves are stacked. I can also put the legend to the side of each curve. So I can click on the legend. Here we have this attached to plots. And it asks what color and what is the font size. Okay. So this time you don't need the legend. Okay. So this is one way to visualize multiple spectrums. Another option is using the waterfall plot. Again, I just choose all the Y columns, and this time I go to plot and 3D and find the 3D waterfall. Okay, so this is a 3D graph, and by default, the Z-axis here is showing the long name on the worksheet. I can double click on it to change that to the comments. So the comments will show us the temperature. Okay, so take labels tab, display, and display here. I select it from the drop-down comments and click OK. So now the Z-axis showing the temperature. I can also say I will fill the color by one and use the same color list. Find this one. Okay, so this is a different way to visualize multiple Y column data. Okay, so let's go to next one, multiple Y-axis. So in this example, I have 3 Y columns. Notice that each Y column has different units because they are different measurements. Okay, so to visualize such data, you would expect a 3 Y-axis plot, but they share the same X-axis. So I will do it first of all, I will just select the column B and start with a line plot. So this time I just go to this toolbar button line. This is like a quick access to the line plot type. So I just plot the B column in first layer. Now I'm going to add a Y-axis to this plot. So to add a Y-axis, actually it's an independent Y-axis, right? So I can go to the right side toolbar and find this add right Y layer button and click it. It will add a second layer. You see this layer indicator here. Now I have a second layer, but the second layer shares the same axis with the first layer, but using a different Y-axis. Okay, now I'm going to add a plot to this second layer. Yeah, this is a question user often ask, how to add a plot to a graph. So here's the simplest way is you can select this column and move your mouse to the edge of the column and click and hold your mouse and drag the column onto the graph. And it asks you some of the data will be outside the current axis limit. Do you want to rescale? Let's say yes. Okay, so the the graph is the plot is being added to the second layer now. Okay, let's make some changes to the plot. Let's say I will change the color to red and make this little sticker. So I customize the graph all using the menu toolbar. So I can let the axis to reflect the color of the curve. So for the axis, I go to the toolbar and set the color to auto. Let's see. I should set the anyway. Let's see how about the font size. Okay, the font size is if you set the font size to auto, it will follow the curve color, and for the axis title as well. Then I can add a second right y-axis. I can click this button again, and I can move the axis to the right a little bit. And this time I will add the column D to the third layer. Okay, so again, for the third layer, I can customize the color to blue and set the axis color to auto to follow the color of the plot, and use the menu toolbar to customize the tick label and the tick and the axis title. Okay, so you can click this regenerate or reconstruct legend button to create the legend for each layer, but there is a button to combine all the legend into one. So you can click this and go and find this one legend for whole page. So all the legends of all three from all three layers are combined into one. Okay. Another thing is you notice that this axis and the title are sticking out of the page. So here's a trick that you can click on the edge of the page and find this fit page to layer button. Yeah, it will just resize the page to cover all the plot all the graph elements. So of course, you may already notice that in Origin we have this multiple panel axis plot. Here is the 3YY plot. You can directly make this graph. Okay. Okay. So let's go to next box plot. So in this example, I'm going to show you step by step how to make this fancy box chart. Okay. So I will start with the so here I have like multiple Y columns, and so for each column it has a long name, different long name, and the different comments. And on the graph, you notice that I will group this the tick labels. So I will make two rows of tick labels for this graph. Okay, let me start with the simplest one. So I choose all the Y columns and go to plot. So this time I'm going to use the statistical plot and a box chart. Starting with the basic box chart first. Then I will going to customize the graph. Okay, so I don't want the legend right now, so I just delete it. So first of all, I'm going to change the colors of each box. I would start with say using toolbar. Let's see how we can use toolbar to do that. So I will by plot. I will use different color for different box. Let's say I can use bold one plot. Okay, and I just change the color of the border of the box as well. Okay. But right now I want to color each box with this let's say the category. Okay, so I want to put red for all 3C box and the blue for all 3MI. So to do that, I go just double click on the box and go to the group tab here. So we will need to set a subgroup here. Okay. So let's say here's a subgrouping. Enable subgrouping. I will make subgroup by the column header. So the column header is long name. Okay. And here I would like the border color and the box color to be colored between the subgroup. So it will show different color for different subgroup right now. Okay. So yeah, basically now it's colored by the long name. Okay. Up next, I will add the symbols on the graph. So this I can do that by using the mini toolbar. So I select the box. So find this box type and go find the box right and the data left. Okay. Then I'm going to customize the symbols. Double click on the symbol and find the symbol tab. I would like to, if you look at this graph, the symbol is indexed to another column. In this case, it's column B. So I would say symbol color and the by points and go check index to column B. Click apply. So each symbols are colored by a group. Okay. Then I will make some more changes to the symbol shape. Let's say circle. Click apply. Okay. So this is more or less the same. And also you notice that the symbol is aligning to the right side. So I can go to the data tab and find this right alignment. So you'll see the data is aligned to the right. Okay. Next, I'm going to add the distribution line to the plot. So in this dialog, I go to the distribution, and for curve type, I'm going to choose a normal. I assume it follows a normal distribution. Click apply, and I can change the distribution curve color to, let's say, gray. Okay, click OK. So this is pretty much done with the plot. Next, I'm going to customize the legend. I will do the axis tick label first. So to enable 2 rows of tick labels, I have to turn on the table display for the tick label. So you go find the table sub tab and click enable, and I pick number of rows 2. Okay. If I click apply, you will see that 2 rows of tick label both use the long name of the column. So here I now have 2 rows of tick labels, right? So I just need to change one tick labels to using comment instead. Okay, let's say comments. Okay. Also, I can fill the label area with some color. If you want to remove these lines, there's also the, let's say, yeah, you can remove the inside border if you want. Okay. So you can add next I will just add a frame on the graph. So you can use the mini toolbar. So add a frame, and I can generate the legend. Click the legend button. But this time there's some redundant text. I can just go into this. I can just select and delete unwanted legends on the min as well. Okay, just delete it. Okay, can move it to the right. So I can even increase the symbol size of the legend by using the mini toolbar. See, if you feel the circle is too small, you can use the mini toolbar here. Okay. And also I can show the scientific notation for the tick labels. So change that to scientific. Okay. Yeah, so this is pretty much for the steps to customize the box chart. Okay. Let's go to next example. XYZ surface plot. So in Origin, we have two ways to represent let's say the 3D data, or here, the first way is to use the XYZ data in worksheet to represent 3D data. Or you can have a matrix book in Origin. It can contain, you know that the Z values are in each cell in the matrix, and you can show the actual X and Y values by going to View menu, and you can say show XY, and you can see the XY values of the matrix. Okay, so for these kind of 3D data, we can display that as a 3D surface. So let's say we start with this XYZ data. I pick the Z column. Of course, Origin will find the X and Y column for Z column when making plot. And go to plot, and let's say 3D and the 3D color map. Okay, so let's say we can make some adjustment of the graph. Say first I will just show you some mini toolbars. Okay, so here are some mini toolbars used for mini toolbars. So this first is the resize mode. If you pick this, you can use this axis to stretch, compress the graph. And you can also use this second mini toolbar to rotate the graph. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you can rotate the graph as you want. Okay, and you can select the graph and pick a different palette if you want. Let's say temperature. Okay, and if you can also double click on this graph, and there are more options to customize the graph. For example, you can add some smoothing to the graph. Say if you go to contour, and you can add some smoothing. Okay. The same thing is for the 3D for the matrix. If you want to make a 3D graph from matrix, you just activate the matrix book, and go find the plot. Yeah, so you can use the recently used graph type. Yeah, so that's about the same. Okay, so there are other options like you can remove the grid lines. So here's some options. Okay, and some people don't like the tick labels to be in the plane or in the XY plane. They want that in the page plane. So here's another option. Let's say the orientation of the labels can in the plane of the screen. Yeah, so it can display this way. Okay. So next is for 3D graph, because in Origin, as I showed you, like for 2D graph, you can have multiple layers, and you can add a plot to different layers. But for 3D graph, Origin can only have one layer. So with that said, if you want to add more plot into the 3D graph, you will need to use the layer contents dialog. So here I can right click on the layer indicator and go to layer contents. So for example, I want to add the XYZ data as a scatter plot to the existing surface plot. I can come here and say select the Z column, and I pick a plot type at the middle let's say 3D scatter, and click the add plot button and click apply. So you will see the XYZ column is added to the graph as a scatter plot. Make it bigger. So then I can make some customization of the scatter plot as well. Let me first to remove the drop lines. Yeah, I don't like this default. So here you can find the drop lines parallel to z-axis. Remove the drop lines. Okay, so if you click the symbol, yeah, let's say I change that to a 3D sphere. Make it bigger. Okay, and I can also add a projection of the scatter plot to the XZ and YZ plane. Let's see. Yeah, here's just the mini toolbar is very easy to customize the graph now. Okay. Yeah. Another trick is like if you hold the R key on the keyboard and drag your mouse, you can also rotate the 3D graph. Okay. It's very simple. Okay. Let's go to next plot. Okay, so in this example, I'm going to show you how to make this contour plot. So here's the data. Okay, I have this temperature data for a couple of cities. So I have the data of the longitude and the latitude of each city, and the column D is the January temperature of each city. So I can use these three columns to make a contour plot. And I would also to add the United States map, the boundary. I also have the boundary data, and I can use this data to set the boundary of the contour. Okay. So I will just duplicate this graph, and I will show you how to do that step by step. Let's say I start from this XYZ data. You can select just column Z, or you can just highlight all three columns and go to the plot menu, and let's say contour plot, and go contour color fill. Okay, so first I'm going to add the boundary to the data. Okay, double click on this graph and go to contour info tab. So by default, it's using data boundary. So this time I'm going to use customize boundary since I know I have the data. So I will choose the boundary X values and the boundary Y values and click apply. Okay. And I can, so it's right now it's not very smooth if you just by looking at the contour line. So I can adding some smooth to the plot. 0.05, let's say. Okay. Let's say next, I'm going to change the color palette. So I can use the mini toolbar. See here, I can change the palette to rainbow. Okay. Yeah, let's say, okay, let me first click on the color scale and change the color scale arrangement to horizontal. And I move it to here, and I will worry about that later. I'll just first to customize the plot first. Okay, I can remove the boundary. Yeah, so remove the axis is just simple. You just select the axis and click the delete key. Okay, so I simply select the unwanted element and click delete key. Okay, then I can let's say resize the layer. Okay. Another thing you notice is that there is a black line as a boundary for the contour. So to add that, here is also the option. Go to the contour color map and contour. So here the boundary, I pick set the boundary color to black and make it thicker. Okay. Next, I'm going to change the levels of this contour. So you can click on the contour. So here you see this find the set levels into a button. Okay. So here you can set the starting and the ending value of this of the levels. Yeah. So by looking at this color scale, it's from 0 to 75, let's say. And you can set the major levels and the minor levels accordingly. So I just recorded the numbers. So it's 15 for, I need 15 major levels. So you will see 15 contour lines on the graph. And for minor levels, I would say 4. Okay, and click OK. So it just show all the contour lines at the major levels. And also here you see it has this particular line, it's colored with red. Okay, so to color individual line, you actually can click twice on that particular contour line. Then you see that it is selected. Then you can use this toolbar button to set the color to red. Okay, you can even make it thicker. Okay, if you feel that the plot itself is not very smooth, so here's another trick to turn on the anti-aliasing. Just click it. Okay. The graph looks much smoother. Okay. Okay, so I think that's all for the plot. Next, I just show you something, some method to customize the color scale. So here we still have this mini toolbar. Yeah, it's like a very nice tool to customize the graph. So first is like here the head and tail levels, it's showing as gray and black. Yeah, I can turn that off. And for the tick labels, it shows 2 decimal places. I can also use this mini toolbar to set the decimal places of the tick label. Let's say I set to 0. And the rest, I guess I have to go to the color scale dialog. So you just double click on the color scale to bring up the dialog. Yeah, so let's check one by one. Let's move it to here. So for the fill color, you see on the right graph, it only shows at the major color levels. So I will only show color at major levels only. So this way you don't see like a continuous change in color for the color scale. And for the levels, I think I don't need to do anything. Also, if you want to make the color scale to be thinner, then I go to the layout, color bar thickness. I change that, lower the thickness. Sorry, 120. That's a good number. Yeah, just to make it thinner. And yeah, if you want to show the ticks here, you can go to line and the ticks and find, yeah, let's say use same options for bottom and the top. Click apply. By default, it's facing outward. So I can go to here to change the major ticks to facing inward and make it shorter, maybe. Okay, so pretty much the same now. Okay. Yeah, so this example just show you how to make a contour plot and with the customized boundary, and also show you options that you can do to customize the color scale. Okay. Yeah, next I will spend some time talking about graph makers and some tricks on duplicate graph. Okay, so here I have this worksheet. It's the I think it's the performance data sheet for each different vehicles of different band and different brand and different year. Okay, so maybe if I want to check the relationship between for example, the power to the engine displacement for different vehicles. Okay, so here I can use this plot graph maker tool. Okay, so it's under the plot menu. It's not belong to any category. It's just at the bottom, the graph maker. Okay, so just bring up this dialog. So what is nice about this tool is that it just lists all the columns of the worksheet on the left side. And to preview the plot, you first select a plot type. So let's say I would do a scatter plot, and you can pick the X and Y axis from the columns. Okay, let's say I want to plot. I want to set the power or the column E as the Y, and I set the engine displacement as X. Sorry, I did it in the wrong place. Okay, so you see how it is plotted on the graph, and you can also divide the graph by years. So I will set years as the panel, let's say vertical. Okay, it's automatically divide the graphs by years. Okay, and also you can use the modifiers like, for example, you want to color each symbol by the brand or by the make of the car. You can drag it, so you see each symbol is colored uh, by the make column. Okay, and yeah, so it's just very simple. You can reference to the color or the symbol size or the shape. Yeah, or yeah, but anyways, it's just let you know that you have these options. Okay, maybe I just turn it off. I don't want the color. You can also add a fitted line to each plot. So here's a fitting box, just check it. So by default, it will just add a linear curve fit. You may choose the order of the polynomial. So yeah, I'll just keep as a linear fit. And you can add the fitted result. So here is another small icon. You can click it, and you can add the equations, the fitted equations, or the, let's say, R square value. Yeah, you can show that on the graph. Okay, that's pretty much it. So if you click OK, it will generate this graph. Okay, so let's see. So right now I'm plotting this graph with this first worksheet. So it gives me the data from 1992 to 1996. Okay, 1992 to 1996. So if I want to duplicate this graph with other worksheet, so let's say I have another two worksheet with the data of different years. So here I have this tool called duplicate batch plotting. There are two buttons here. Duplicate is just to duplicate this graph, but if you want to duplicate the graph with new data, you can choose the second one. And here you can select duplicate with new columns, new sheet, or new book. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to duplicate with new sheet, right? Okay, so here you just pick the next two worksheet of the different years. Okay, make sure the plot is being plotted to individual graphs. Okay, make sure you choose the individual graphs here and click OK. So now you have the plot for different years, also for the other years. Okay, so this is how you let's say duplicate the graph with new data, but keep the formatting. Okay, let's see what other topics I'm going to talk. Okay, so let's see. Let me just close this. Oh, this one. So here I have this fancy, to call it like a violin plot. It has a distribution on the right and it has the symbols on the left. So this is like a variation of a box chart. And in Origin, if you select the plot, it will display in the worksheet which column that was used to make this plot. Okay, so let's say I choose a second column and make a box chart, make a basic box chart, let's say. Okay, so if I want to copy the format from the right graph to the left graph, so here you have this option. So you can click, select the layer, let's say, and right click and say copy format. Okay, and you can choose which format you want to copy. So I will just keep simple, like I will copy all format from this graph and go to the box chart. And also I select the layer and right click and paste format. Because this is because the axis range is also axis scale is also pasted over, copied over. So I can use this mini toolbar to rescale. Okay. So this is an easy way to, to copy the format from one graph to the other graph. So which is nice about this is that in Origin, if you go to Help menu and you go to Learning Center, here we have a lot of samples of graphs. Okay, and they are, if I select all plot types, yeah, you can browse these graph types. And if you find someone which is you are interested in, you can just open it and work. You can use the copy format method to copy the format from our sample graph to your own graph. Okay, this is very useful. Okay, so this is copy format from one graph to the other. There's another option is if you have a more complicated graph, let's say this one. So here I have this bigger graph. It's very complicated. Yeah, if I choose the select the graph on the select the plot, you will see the data is coming from different columns in the worksheet, right? So again, if I want to duplicate this graph for other worksheet, um, as I have showed you before, that you can use this duplicate batch plotting method, right? But you can also save this graph as a template. So you just right click on the window title bar and select Save Template As. And you can give it a template name. Let's say my template. And make sure you check the clonable template box here. So if you check this box, when you use this template, Origin will automatically match the columns, the plotting columns by the long name here. Okay, it's already there, but it's okay. I can. Okay, so let's say if I want to use this template for another worksheet, I just first activate the worksheet and I go to the template library. You can go to the template library from plot and choose template library and find this template. Okay. As I said, if you save this as a clonable template, you don't need to choose which column to make the plot. Origin will automatically match the plotting columns by the long name, by the column long name. You can also choose to match the plotting column by the column index, but yeah, that's just your option. So just click plot. Origin will plot the same graph with the different worksheet. Okay. So this is another way to uh, to duplicate the graph with a new format. Okay. Okay, so let's go to the last topic, merge graphs. Okay, so in this folder, I have 4 workbooks. Okay, so each workbook contains multiple worksheets. Okay, first of all, I have already made a graph from one workbook, so it has the raw the original data, and I also doing some peak fit and get the fitted curve. So then I added the fitted curve to the graph. So I would like to duplicate this graph with all other 3 workbooks. Yeah, as I showed you that you can use duplicate with batch plotting. So let's say batch plot with book. Yeah, it already shows the 3 workbooks. So in order to duplicate with new book, you need to make sure all the workbooks has the same structure as the workbook of the source data. Okay, let's click OK. It just duplicate this plot. Now I have 4 graphs in the folder. Sometimes people want to just merge the 4 graphs into one bigger graph. So in Origin, we go to the merge graph. Here's the icon. Click that. Smaller. So in this dialog, first I will choose the graphs. Click the triangle button and say all in active folder. So it will list all the graphs in this folder. And here you can set an arrangement of the graph. So you can do 2 by 2 or 4 by 1, for example. Yeah, it's a different organization of the graphs. Yeah, just keep it 2 by 2. And there are other settings, like you can set the gaps between the graphs. Yeah, make it it's all depends on the margin as well. The margin. Yeah. And you can also show the page as a landscape or portrait. Yeah, it's all your options. And if you choose auto, it's just simply just stick all 4 graphs together and keep the layer sizes the same. Okay, and you can also add labels to the graph. Let's say I can add numbers to it. So here the number is using, let's say, small n. Okay, bracket here. It's bigger. Okay, so you will see it also added the labels to each layer, and you can set that to left inside. Okay, and click OK to merge the graph. Okay. Yeah. Sometimes you after you merge the graph, you still want to customize the graph. Maybe you want to switch the order of the layers, and you want to change the gaps, for example. You can go to the graph manager. Let's say layer management tool. So here, let's say I want to switch the 2 layers. I can go to size and position. Let's say swap. I can swap the, let's say, second graph and the third graph, and click apply. Yeah, it will just swap the 2 graphs. And yeah, you can also change the gaps between each layers as well. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you see the graph is being swapped. Yeah, so this is about how to merge graphs. Okay, I think that's pretty much I just covered today's topic. Okay, and thank you for attending today's webinar. And if you have more questions, feel free to send an email to us. We will be glad to help you. And thank you for joining, and have a nice day.
Hi,
Yeah, yeah,
Yiming,
yeah.
maybe you can open the website and show them where the webinar
Oh,
page is, where the recordings will be.
okay, sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hold on. Just a minute. Okay. You can go to originlab.com. So here is our main page, and you go to the right side, and you can find this upcoming webinars. Just click this, and in this page, you can see our upcoming webinars on top here. You can register for that. So next topic is curve fitting, and then you can also find the recorded webinars here. Just click all recorded webinars. Yeah, you can find all the old webinars. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. No problem. Yeah. See. Okay, so thank you for attending. I will close the window now.